What if I told you that on a quiet Tuesday morning in March 1977, while most of the world was drinking coffee and reading newspapers, humanity took its first real look at itself? Not in a mirror, not in a photograph, but from the perspective of eternity itself. This wasn't just another day in our species' long journey through time. This was the morning we grew up, the moment we finally understood our true address in the cosmos and discovered that home is far more precious and fragile than we had ever dared to imagine. Picture yourself standing in a vast cathedral, so enormous that the ceiling disappears into darkness above you, and you realize that what you thought was the entire building is just a single grain of sand on an infinite beach. This is what happened to us as a species when we first glimpsed our planet, not from the comfortable distance of our atmosphere, but from the cold, honest perspective of deep space. The Voyager missions weren't just feats of engineering. They were humanity's first tentative steps toward cosmic maturity, our first honest look in the mirror of space and time. Carl Sagan understood something that most of his contemporaries missed entirely. He saw that science wasn't just a method for understanding the physical world, it was a spiritual practice, a way of connecting with the deepest truths of existence. When he looked through a telescope, he wasn't just seeing distant stars. He was witnessing the very atoms that would one day become his thoughts, his dreams, his capacity for wonder. When he studied the dance of planets, he was learning the choreography of forces that govern not just celestial bodies, but the rhythm of his own heartbeat. The story begins not with rockets or computers, but with a simple question that had been haunting our species since we first looked up at the night sky. Are we alone? But Sagan realized that this question was backwards. The real question wasn't whether we were alone. It was whether we truly understood what it meant to be connected. Every atom in your body was forged in the nuclear furnace of a dying star. The calcium strengthening your bones right now was created in a stellar explosion that occurred billions of years before Earth even existed. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are the cosmos becoming aware of itself. This realization transforms everything. When you understand that the iron in your blood is the same iron that forms in the core of massive stars, when you grasp that the oxygen you breathe was exhaled by ancient stellar giants in their final moments, when you truly comprehend that your very capacity for love and wonder emerged from the same fundamental forces that birth galaxies and sculpt nebulae, how can you ever feel disconnected from the universe again? But here's what makes this perspective revolutionary rather than merely poetic. It changes how we treat each other and our planet. When you recognize that every human being is quite literally made from the remnants of stellar explosions, when you understand that we all share the same cosmic ancestry, when you see that our differences are as insignificant as the color of dust particles in a solar system, where all dust came from the same stellar source, tribalism becomes not just morally questionable, but cosmically absurd. Sagan lived during a time when humanity was just beginning to see itself clearly for the first time. The space age wasn't just about reaching the moon, it was about gaining perspective on who we are and where we belong. For the first time in human history, we could step outside our planetary home and look back, really look back, at the only world we've ever known. What we saw changed everything. From space, there are no borders. From space, there are no racial divisions. From space, the conflicts that dominate our headlines appear as what they truly are, the temporary disagreements of a young species still learning how to live together on a small world orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable galaxy among billions of others. The cosmic perspective doesn't diminish human concerns. It reveals which concerns are worthy of our cosmic inheritance and which are simply the growing pains of a civilization still figuring out how to be wise. This is why Sagan's message feels more urgent today than ever before. We live in an age where we have the power to destroy ourselves, where our technologies have outpaced our wisdom, where we can split atoms and edit genes, but still struggle to treat each other with the kindness that our shared stellar heritage demands. We have become gods in our technological capabilities, while remaining children in our cosmic understanding. The pale blue dot that Voyager photographed wasn't just a picture of Earth. It was a mirror reflecting our true nature back to us. We are not conquerors of nature. We are nature's way of understanding itself. We are not separate from the cosmos. We are the cosmos awakening to its own beauty and mystery. We are not alone in the universe. We are the universe becoming conscious, becoming curious, becoming capable of love and wonder, and the deep joy that comes from finally recognizing our place in the grand cosmic story. Tonight, when you look up at the stars, remember that you are not just observing the cosmos, you are participating in it. Those distant lights are not foreign and alien. They are your ancestors, the stellar nurseries where the elements of your body were born. The darkness between them is not empty space. It's the vast ocean of possibility from which consciousness emerged, the fertile void that gave birth to everything you are and everything you're capable of becoming. Carl Sagan revealed to us that science is not the opposite of spirituality. It is spirituality's most honest expression. When we peer through a microscope at the intricate dance of molecules, when we point radio telescopes toward distant galaxies listening for whispers of other civilizations, when we study the elegant mathematics that govern everything from quantum mechanics to galactic rotation, we are engaging in the most profound spiritual practice our species has ever developed. We are learning to read the sacred text written in the language of the cosmos itself. Consider the magnificent story that science tells us about our origins. 13.8 billion years ago, everything that exists, every atom that would ever form your thoughts, every particle that would ever become part of a flower or a mountain or a moment of laughter between friends, was concentrated in a space smaller than the period at the end of this sentence. Then, in an explosion of creative force that we can barely imagine, space and time themselves burst into existence, beginning a cosmic evolution that would eventually lead to stars, planets, life, consciousness, and the capacity for wonder itself. This is not a cold mechanical story. This is the greatest love story ever told. The universe, through billions of years of patient evolution, transformed hydrogen and helium into complex atoms into molecules, molecules into the first primitive cells, and eventually, through the slow magic of natural selection and cosmic time, into beings capable of contemplating their own existence. You are not an accident in an indifferent universe. You are the universe's most magnificent achievement, the cosmos becoming conscious of its own beauty and mystery. When Sagan spoke about us being made of star stuff, he wasn't offering a mere metaphor. He was revealing a literal truth that connects you to every other living thing on Earth and to the most distant galaxies our telescopes can detect. The carbon in your DNA, the nitrogen in your proteins, the phosphorus in your bones, all of it was manufactured in the cores of ancient stars that lived, burned brightly, and died long before our sun was born. You carry within your body the ashes of stellar giants, the remnants of cosmic furnaces that once lit up entire regions of space. But here's what makes this knowledge truly transformative. Understanding our cosmic heritage doesn't diminish the sacred. It reveals that everything is sacred. When you look at another person and truly understand that they are made from the same stellar materials as you, arranged by the same fundamental forces, animated by the same cosmic energy that powers the sun itself, how can you not feel a profound sense of kinship? When you see a tree and recognize that its carbon came from the same stellar forges as yours, that its growth is powered by nuclear fusion happening 93 million miles away, that it participates in the same cosmic dance of matter and energy that gave birth to galaxies, how can you not feel reverence? The sacred is not separate from the natural world. The natural world is sacred. Every atom of it, every quantum interaction, every moment of the ongoing cosmic evolution that continues in your very cells as you read these words. Science doesn't destroy the mystery of existence. It reveals that existence itself is far more mysterious and wonderful than our ancestors ever imagined. We live in a universe where matter can organize itself into patterns complex enough to contemplate infinity, where consciousness can emerge from chemistry, where love can arise from the same forces that bind atomic nuclei together. This is why attacking science in the name of spirituality is like trying to destroy poetry in the name of beauty. Science is our species' most successful method for discovering truth, and truth, whatever it reveals about the nature of reality, is always more beautiful and more worthy of reverence than the comfortable illusions we might prefer. When we choose scientific thinking, we choose to see the universe as it actually is, rather than as we wish it were, and what it actually is turns out to be far more magnificent than anything we could have invented. Sagan taught us that the choice is not between science and spirituality, but between honest wonder and comfortable delusion. The cosmos revealed by science is not cold and meaningless. It is warm with the light of billions of stars, meaningful with the complexity that led to consciousness, beautiful with the mathematical elegance that governs everything from the orbits of electrons to the spiral arms of galaxies. When we choose to see clearly, when we commit ourselves to following the evidence wherever it leads, when we embrace the radical humility that comes from recognizing how much we still don't know, we are practicing the deepest form of spiritual discipline. If these ideas resonate with something deep in your chest, if you feel that same wonder that Carl Sagan felt when he first understood our true place in the cosmos, then you're not alone. There's a growing community of people who understand that science and spirituality are not enemies but partners in the greatest adventure our species has ever undertaken, the quest to understand who we are and how we fit into the magnificent story that is still unfolding all around us. Consider joining us by subscribing to this channel, not just to get notifications about new videos, but as a way of saying yes to curiosity, yes to wonder, yes to the ongoing project of seeing clearly. And share with us in the comments, what's one thing about the cosmos that fills you with awe? What's one scientific discovery that changed how you see yourself? Your perspective matters because you matter. You are part of this cosmic story, and your wonder and questions help drive human understanding forward into new realms of discovery and meaning. Carl Sagan embodied a profound paradox that few people understand. He was simultaneously the most skeptical and the most wonder-filled person of his generation. He questioned everything, from UFO sightings to claims about ancient astronauts to the fundamental assumptions of his own scientific theories. Yet his capacity for awe and reverence grew stronger with each answered question, each solved mystery, each new understanding of how the cosmos actually works. This wasn't a contradiction. It was the essence of what he called the fine art of balancing skepticism and wonder. Most people believe that doubt destroys faith, that questioning diminishes mystery, that understanding something scientifically somehow makes it less beautiful or meaningful. Sagan showed us that exactly the opposite is true. The more deeply we understand the natural world, the more reasons we find for wonder. The more rigorously we question our assumptions, the more solid becomes our foundation for genuine knowledge. The more honestly we acknowledge what we don't know, the more meaningful become the things we do know. This is what Sagan meant by compassionate skepticism, the ability to question ideas without attacking the people who hold them, to demand evidence without becoming cynical, to maintain intellectual rigor without losing emotional warmth. It's the difference between the scientist who says, "I don't think that's correct and here's why," and the cynic who says, "Nothing is true and nothing matters." It's the difference between healthy doubt that opens new possibilities and toxic doubt that closes down curiosity entirely. Consider how this played out in Sagan's own career. When people claimed to have been abducted by aliens, Sagan didn't mock them or dismiss them as crazy. Instead, he asked, what would constitute convincing evidence for such claims? What alternative explanations might account for these experiences? How can we design tests to distinguish between different possibilities? This approach led not to cynicism about extraterrestrial life, but to more sophisticated and ultimately more hopeful ways of searching for it. The same rigorous thinking that made him skeptical of UFO stories made him passionate about the scientific search for extraterrestrial intelligence. This is the kind of thinking our world desperately needs right now. We live in an age where information travels faster than wisdom, where anyone with an internet connection can broadcast their opinions to millions of people, where the line between expertise and ideology has been deliberately blurred by those who profit from confusion. In such a world, the ability to think scientifically, to distinguish between what we know and what we believe, between what the evidence supports and what we wish were true, becomes not just intellectually valuable, but morally essential. Scientific thinking is not about memorizing facts or accepting everything that people in lab coats tell you. Scientific thinking is a method, a discipline, a way of approaching any question with the tools of logic, evidence, and intellectual honesty. It's the commitment to changing your mind when new evidence emerges, even when changing your mind is uncomfortable. It's the courage to say, "I don't know," when you don't know, rather than inventing explanations that sound good but don't match reality. This kind of thinking requires both intellectual courage and emotional maturity. It takes courage to question ideas that are popular, profitable, or psychologically comforting. It takes courage to admit that some of your most cherished beliefs might be wrong. It takes courage to follow the evidence, even when it leads to conclusions that challenge your worldview, your identity, or your sense of how things should be. But it also takes emotional maturity to question ideas without becoming arrogant, to correct errors without humiliating people, to maintain wonder even as you develop the tools to distinguish between genuine mystery and simple ignorance. Sagan had this rare combination of intellectual fearlessness and emotional wisdom. He could debunk pseudoscience while maintaining deep respect for the human need for meaning and connection. He could advocate for rigorous thinking while never losing sight of why thinking matters in the first place. The key insight that Sagan offered is that skepticism and wonder are not opposites, they are partners. The person who questions everything out of cynicism will find nothing worth believing in. The person who questions nothing out of credulity will believe in everything, which amounts to the same thing. But the person who questions with the goal of understanding, who doubts in service of deeper truth, who maintains skepticism as a tool rather than an ideology, this person will find that reality is far stranger and more wonderful than any fiction. When you approach the world with genuine scientific curiosity, every answered question opens up 10 new questions. When you understand how photosynthesis works, the fact that plants are literally eating light becomes more magical, not less. When you learn about the quantum mechanics underlying chemical bonds, the idea that matter can organize itself into patterns complex enough to contemplate the universe becomes more miraculous, not less. When you study the evolutionary history that led to consciousness, the fact that the cosmos can become aware of itself through beings like us becomes more profound, not less. This is why Sagan spent so much of his career fighting against what he called the demon-haunted world, not because he wanted to eliminate mystery from human life, but because he wanted to eliminate fake mysteries so we could focus our sense of wonder on real ones. The universe revealed by science is mysterious enough to satisfy any human hunger for the unknown. We don't need to invent aliens visiting Earth when the real search for extraterrestrial life is so much more fascinating. We don't need to believe in psychic powers when the actual powers of the human brain are so much more impressive. We don't need magical thinking when reality itself is more magical than anything we could make up. The goal is not to become a cold, calculating skeptic who finds no room for wonder in the world. The goal is to become the kind of person Sagan was, someone whose capacity for awe grows stronger with each new understanding, whose sense of mystery deepens with each answered question, whose love for truth leads not to cynicism, but to an ever-expanding appreciation for the magnificent complexity and beauty of the cosmos we actually live in. On September 5, 1977, while most of the world went about their daily routines, something extraordinary left our planet. Voyager 1 began a journey that would take it farther from home than any human-made object had ever traveled, carrying with it a golden record containing the sounds and images of Earth. Music from Bach and Chuck Berry, greetings in 59 languages, the cry of a newborn baby, the sound of rain, and a message from then-President Jimmy Carter that began, "This is a present from a small distant world." What Carter couldn't have known as he recorded those words was that this small distant world was about to see itself clearly for the first time, and that the revelation would change how we understand our responsibilities to each other and to the only home we've ever known. Carl Sagan understood that cosmic perspective inevitably leads to cosmic responsibility. When you truly grasp that Earth is a tiny oasis of life in a vast desert of space, when you understand that every living thing you've ever seen exists on a world that could fit comfortably in the gap between Saturn's rings, when you realize that our entire planetary biosphere occupies a zone so thin that if Earth were the size of an apple, all of life would exist in the skin, you begin to understand that we are not the owners of this world, but its temporary caretakers. The famous photograph that Voyager 1 took from 3.7 billion miles away shows our planet as what Sagan called a pale blue dot suspended in a sunbeam, almost lost in the cosmic dark. From that distance, all of human history, every war ever fought, every empire ever built, every love story ever lived, occupies a space smaller than a pixel. This perspective doesn't diminish the importance of human life. It reveals that human life is precious precisely because it is rare, fragile, and, as far as we know, unique in our cosmic neighborhood. This understanding transforms how we see our planetary challenges. Climate change is not just an environmental issue, it's a cosmic issue. We are the only known planet in the universe where complex life has evolved to the point of being able to understand its own origins and contemplate its own future. To damage the delicate atmospheric chemistry that makes this consciousness possible, to destabilize the climate systems that sustain the biosphere, that gave birth to minds capable of wondering about their place in the cosmos. This would be not just a tragedy, but a cosmic crime. The universe losing its capacity to know itself through us. The same cosmic perspective that reveals our insignificance in space reveals our enormous significance in time. We may be tiny compared to galaxies, but we represent something unprecedented in the 13.8 billion-year history of the universe, matter organized in such a way that it can appreciate beauty, understand mathematics, feel compassion, and make moral choices. We are the cosmos becoming conscious, ethical, and capable of taking responsibility for its own future evolution. Sagan saw that our technologies have made us a planetary species, whether we're ready for that responsibility or not. Nuclear weapons gave us the power to end civilization in an afternoon. Industrial agriculture and fossil fuels gave us the ability to alter atmospheric chemistry and global climate. Genetic engineering is giving us the power to direct the future course of evolution itself. We have become, in Sagan's words, like gods in our technological capabilities, but we still think and act like the tribal primates we were just moments ago in evolutionary time. This is why scientific thinking is not just intellectually valuable, but morally essential for our survival as a species. The challenges facing humanity in the 21st century, from climate change to nuclear proliferation, to artificial intelligence to biotechnology, cannot be solved by tribal thinking, wishful thinking, or magical thinking. They require the kind of clear-eyed, evidence-based reasoning that science has taught us to value. They require the humility to acknowledge when we don't know something, and the courage to act on the best available evidence, even when the solutions are difficult or expensive. But scientific thinking alone is not enough. We also need what Sagan called cosmic compassion, the emotional wisdom that comes from understanding our shared origin in stellar nucleosynthesis, our common evolutionary heritage, our mutual dependence on the same fragile biosphere. When you truly understand that the carbon in your DNA, and the carbon in a tree and the carbon in someone you disagree with politically all came from the same stellar forge, when you recognize that we are all temporary arrangements of cosmic dust temporarily animated by solar energy, when you see that our differences are as superficial as the patterns that waves make on the surface of the same ocean, compassion becomes not just morally admirable, but scientifically accurate. This is the vision that Sagan offered, a species mature enough to take responsibility for its own future, and wise enough to make decisions based on evidence rather than ideology, on long-term thinking rather than short-term profit, on cosmic perspective rather than tribal prejudice. He saw that we are at a crucial moment in human history, where our technological power has outpaced our wisdom, where we have gained the ability to destroy ourselves before we've gained the wisdom to ensure our own survival. The question is not whether we are alone in the universe. The question is whether we will grow up fast enough to survive our own childhood as a technological civilization. The answer depends on whether we can learn to think like citizens of the cosmos, rather than members of competing tribes, whether we can learn to make decisions that honor our cosmic heritage and our responsibilities to future generations. We are the first generation in human history to know our true address in the cosmos and to understand our actual situation, temporary residents of a small world orbiting an ordinary star in an unremarkable galaxy, but also the only known location where the universe has become conscious of itself and capable of understanding its own beauty and meaning. We are simultaneously cosmically insignificant and cosmically precious, tiny in space but enormous in responsibility, brief in duration but potentially crucial to the future of consciousness in the cosmos. If this vision of cosmic responsibility speaks to you, if you feel called to be part of a species worthy of its cosmic inheritance, then we invite you to join this growing community of people who understand that science and spirituality are not enemies but partners in the great work of becoming fully human. Subscribe not just to this channel, but to the idea that we can do better, that we can think more clearly, that we can treat each other and our planet with the respect that our cosmic story demands. Tell us in the comments what you're willing to do to help our species grow up. What changes you're making in your own life to live with cosmic perspective, and what topics you'd like us to explore in future videos. Because in the end, we are all in this together, fellow travelers on a small world spinning through space, sharing the same cosmic heritage, facing the same cosmic future, and carrying the same cosmic responsibility to ensure that consciousness, compassion, and wonder continue to flourish in our corner of the universe.